Hey guys, I'm going to do another largely unscripted snapshot giving my impressions on the new game plans that are replacing plot cards. But before we get into it, I want to let you know that my patrons got this video the day of release, and they often get videos early. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can go check out my Patreon where you can get cool tokens and early videos, as well as access to the Patreon page. So, game plans replace two things. We are getting rid of guild plots. Those are going away. Instead, you will draft game plan cards. 7 will be dealt to each player, and discard 2 of them. So you keep 5. From there, they replace the roll between turns. So you no longer have die roll. You're going to instead play a card face down and reveal it, and add its number in the lower left corner, which is its momentum or initiative increase, and that will dictate who goes first by adding it to your momentum. How I'm going to go through these cards is I'm going to go through each one. I've sorted them by highest momentum value to lowest. So we're just going to get right into it. We have Lone Striker sees the initiative at 7. So both of these are fantastic because one of the things I discovered when playing with game plan cards is that the number is the most important part of the card. The effects are typically secondary. Now there are a couple exceptions where the effects are absolutely fantastic and it doesn't matter, but largely the number is the most important one. If you're holding both of the 7s, that's a big deal. So Lone Striker, if your team has the initiative, the first friendly model to activate suffers -1 tack for the remainder of the turn, and it gives you -1 influence. Seize the initiative. Starting with the player that has the initiative, both players choose one friendly model to immediately make a 4-inch dodge, and this has no influence modifier. So it's essentially raise the stakes. Seize the initiative's insane, and actually just like a really exciting card to do. And I think the raise the stakes effect is more at home here than it is on Lucky's card. Raise the stakes is a super cool mechanic. Unfortunately, when one player gets to choose when it goes, and they have the worst half of it, they typically just don't trigger it, so we don't see it enough. But I think Seize the Initiative is going to be great because it's a 7, so you might be able to steal the initiative if they don't play a high enough card, if they're like up on momentum on you. And then even if you lose, you get the better half of the effect then, because you get to make your dodge after they do. Really like Seize the Initiative. There's some really clever things you can do with it. Lone Striker is going first at a heavy cost. Essentially, whatever you activate first with is going to be -1 tack, which is really rough on a lot of models. Now, if you're a captain with like 7 or 8 tack, it's like the -1 isn't as big of a deal for you. But if you want like Mist to go first, go generate momentum, and then kick the goal in, a -1 tack's a big deal. So really good, but you have to be careful about it. Also, Smoke and Engineers will love Lone Striker, as well as Hunters, because a lot of times their first activation can generate momentum and doesn't care about its tack changing. Alright, moving on to the 2 6s. We have Grudge Match and Sell It to the Crowd. Grudge Match says, starting with the player that has the initiative, both players can choose one enemy squatting model that is currently on the pitch. The chosen model suffers singled out, and it's -1 influence. Then there's Sell It to the Crowd. Each time a friendly model scores a goal, it can use the Run the Length ability without spending momentum. And that has also -1. These are both good. Again, Sell It to the Crowd is a like heavy cost for going first, mostly in the -1. Free Run the Length is really good. So if you want to go first and you're going to go with Mist or your Striker, you would much rather play Sell It to the Crowd than Lone Striker. Especially because it could give you will let you keep the momentum and get your Striker to safety. Really like Sell It to the Crowd. And Grudge Match is really similar to Seize the Initiative, the raise the stakes. You each get to put singled out on a model of your opponents. Has to be a non-captain, non-mascot. That's what the new squatty term means. It's going to be in the OPD and then later added to core rules in Season 4, at least according to Bryce on Twitter. I really like Grudge Match. Singled out for factions that don't have access to it is fantastic. Brewers very specifically don't get access to this, except for, I guess, Avarice and Greed, which you can't protect or deliver. It's just insane on short playbooks. Essentially, anybody that doesn't have access to attack buff outside of gang ups really will love Grudge Match. The teams that have singled out love it exactly as much as normal singled out. You have to be careful about it, because if they can put it on one of your models and you can lose them, it's kind of a big deal. But they can't put it on your captain, they can't put it on your mascot. I like Grudge Match overall. Moving on. Alright, at 5 we have fullback. Go for the knees, stick to the plan. Fullback says, the first time a friendly model declares a charge while within 8 inches of the edge of the pitch, the friendly model spends 1 less influence. It's essentially a wingback that you have to reveal at the beginning of the turn. I like that it's called fullback to avoid confusion. Unfortunately, they decided to name something wingbacks in this set, which makes no sense to me. I think they should have tried to avoid a lot of the words that were named other, or that other things were named. Go for the knees. Choose one friendly non-captain model that is currently on the pitch. The chosen model gains +1 tack. No influence modifier. Stick to the plan. Friendly models gain showboating -1. Alright, so fullback is decent. I think this is probably the dead middle of everything. It effectively gives you 1 influence. Even though it's a +0, it gives you 1 influence because you're going to take a charge from within 8 inches. So it gives you kind of like a pseudo extra 1. And then it's a 5, which is which is a good initiative value. The initiative values range from 1 to 7, with there being very few 7s and very few 1s, and as you get towards the middle, there are more of them. 5 is still on the good side of it. Go for the knees is also really good. +1 tack on a non-captain can be really good, especially when you consider a lot of mascots have really short playbooks. Someone like Strongbox having go for the knees and then Rage Red Furying them is going to be really, really good. What else? Peck under Honest Labor is going to love go for the knees, as well as just kind of like the Jakars and the Taters and the other beaters that are in the game. Stick to the plan is, I'm not sure where I feel on it. The -1 with only 5 initiative is a pretty steep price, but showboating is also absurdly good. But the other thing is that showboating is usually best in the early terms of the game before the lines meet, when you're doing a lot of passes if you've received. And you don't play one of these on turn 1. You don't play it until turn 1 ends and you go to your first initiative phase. So, stick to the plan probably in the lower half of cards. If you have stick to the plan and you're trying to choose between other 5s to discard, I think discard stick to the plan. Alright, so the 4s, we have back in the game, keep the ball moving, keep your chin up, and wingbacks. Back in the game, the first time a friendly model suffers the taken out condition, before removing the friendly model from the pitch, any influence currently on the friendly model may be allocated to one other friendly model within 8 inches. No influence modifier. This is essentially, I kill your guy, you can move his influence to another player, not allowed to exceed your influence cap, because it's allocate, not gain. And it's only moved from one model to another. It's not like I can place 4 on a guy and then move 1 to 3 models all within 8 inches. Keep the ball moving. Friendly models gain +1/+0 kick. No influence modifier. Keep your chin up. The first time friendly model uses the come on mate, which is heal someone else, you may do so without spending momentum. No influence modifier. Wingbacks, which my biggest issue with this card is that they named it, they just added an S to wingback, and it has a very different effect. Each time a friendly model activates within 8 inches of the edge of the pitch, the friendly model gains Shadow-like, which is a 2-inch dodge at the start of their activation. This is the baseline for the deck, in my opinion. 4 is the middle, they range from 1 to 7, 4 is the dead center, and it has the most cards here. Back in the game is really good because it lets you punish people holding you at low influence. So sometimes in a game around the turn barrier, you put a good model to like 1, or with like 1, 2, or 3 hit points. with the implication that you're just going to kill them as your first activation and then go somewhere else and spend the rest of your influence. But and then a lot of times people don't put influence on that model, and then that player has no incentive to kill that model right away because it can't get away from them and it has no resources to spend. Back in the game lets you abuse that, especially when it's like a dicier activation, like let's say you have 7 points, and if like a roll or two goes bad, like they don't die. Back in the game can really let you just kind of punish that. I like back in the game, especially when it's a middling initiative number. Keep the ball moving is my biggest issue with it. It's boring. It's rock solid. I mean, an extra kick die is always helpful, especially early in the game when you're passing the ball around or when you're going for that really important goal, because a lot of times you have to risk the game on a goal, and I would much rather risk it on a 4 or a 5 than a 3 or a 4. So that's good, especially because its momentum number is right around the middle. Keep your chin up is okay. It's essentially 2 free momentum used for healing. I almost would prefer this was a on myself. I get why it's not. Essentially, if you could use it on yourself, I could go first, stand up a knockdown model, and with +4 to my momentum is pretty doable. I don't have to get that much higher to guarantee that I can play this card even if you have a 7 in hand. And then I could stand up a knockdown model, and there's little ways for players to control the turner. And I'm really glad it doesn't do that, because also I play smoke, and if you could clear yourself and then charge, a lot of the smoke's control wouldn't work. So that's good. It's essentially 4 2 free momentum for a very specific action, but an action you will almost guaranteed do on the turn. The trick is just going to be remember to use it. Wingbacks, I've already said my major gripe, but every model that activates within 8 inches of the pitch getting a Shadow-like is really, really good. This is every model that came back on that turn, so +2 inches of dodge to every model that came back on, as well as any of your like side strikers. It also allows a really good turn of flanking if you're playing like a heavy striking list. I like wingbacks. If I had to rate them in order within this tier, I would probably put, let's see, I think I would put Back in the Game as the best one, then Keep the Ball Moving, then wingbacks, then Keep Your Chin Up. Keep the Ball Moving and wingbacks are very, very close in my opinion. Moving on. At the 3s, we have Get Back in There, Midfield General, Won't Touch the Hair. Get Back in There, friendly models that return to the pitch due to the Icy Sponge gain +2/+2 move. It's important to note here that game plans last for the entire turn. So the model that comes back on, let's say they have a jog of 6, they jog 8 back on, and then during their activation they can also jog 8. This is huge. Midfield General, friendly models gain +1/+1 move. Won't touch the hair. Choose one friendly squatty model that is currently on the pitch. That model gains poised, which is free counterattack, no momentum cost. And that one has +1 influence. So, Get Back in There in Midfield General. I love Won't Touch the Hair is alright. The +1 influence is interesting, especially if you're one of the more like efficient teams that gain it. The effect is just kind of okay. There aren't that many squatties that have a really, really excellent counterattacks. You're looking at like the Benedictions, the people with double pushes, double dodges on low numbers. If it was Captain, it'd be like disgusting on Blackheart or any of the models that have 2-inch separators early. Get Back in There is probably the best one. Just having a model that's either... It essentially usually gives you, like, cuts the number of turns you have to get back into the action by 1. So, like, if it was going to take you 2 turns to get the model back into the fight, it's going to be back in the fight this turn. And then when you consider the fact that you can combine this with Fast Ground, potentially, also with the speed, potentially Fast Ground on your opponent's side of the pitch or in the middle of the pitch, this gets really nuts. Midfield General is strong because it is guaranteed to affect every single one of your models. So it's not as good of an effect as Get Back in There, but it is a wider effect and it hits more models. +1/+1 move is also just like really good on the striking teams or the teams that are really looking to threat there. And especially if your opponent is playing some kind of threat range game like Smoke likes to, or like Ballista likes to, or the Hunters like to, giving them an unexpected extra inch on every one of your players can be a big, big deal. And then Won't Touch the Hair is just, like, it's okay. So I put these as get back in there, midfield general, then Won't Touch the Hair. Moving on. The 2 momentum ones. Dig Deep and Kick 'em when they're down. Dig Deep reads, friendly team gains 2 momentum each time an opponent scores a goal and gives you 1 extra influence. Kick 'em when they're down. Friendly squatty models gain Shove the Boot in, which is +1 damage on playbook results if they're knocked down, and it gives you -1 influence. Holy moly, Kick 'em when they're down is so good. There are a ton of factions in this game that very purposefully don't have access to Tooled Up or any damage buff. And Kick 'em when they're down destroys that. Alchemist teams don't have access to a damage buff for very, very good reason. But they have quite a few knockdowns, especially like a Midas team, with how easily Catalyst can hand out knockdowns, Cat 1. If Cat goes and knocks down 3 models, all of a sudden your entire team has 2 damage on 1 and 3 damage on 2. Like, that's insane. That's really, really good. I really like Kick 'em when they're down, and if you're playing a team with 13 influence, the -1 influence is almost always negligible. And Dig Deep sucks. This card is bad. Like, the +1 influence is nice, but its ability is blank, and it's a 2 momentum. I would discard this every time you see it, unless you have, like, 2 1 momentums or something. Or, like, your cards have to be pretty bad to play Dig Deep. I think there's only 1 card in the deck worse than Dig Deep. Moving on. We have, for our final 2, Hunker Down and the Offside Trap. Hunker Down, while within the friendly half of the pitch, friendly models gain Resolute. Resolute is a new keyword that when a counterattack an enemy model, you gain +2 attack for the counterattack. And then it also gives you +1 influence. The Offside Trap, which we saw Jamie play on stream, an enemy model must spend 1 additional momentum to make a shot or a snapshot if it is closer to the friendly goal post than any other model. And it also gives +1 influence. Offside Trap is the worst card in the deck. This card sucks. Its ability doesn't do anything. Like, I get why they didn't want to make it just a flat 2 momentum, because it could just, like, on initiative rolls you're gonna lose, it could just flat stop goal runs. And I think part of this was they were looking to move away from gotchas, and the Offside Trap would have been a huge gotcha. It is very hard to make your opponent's goal kick be the closest to your goal post. You will likely have something hanging out back there, and the fact that they can play around it by having one of their models closer makes the effect essentially blank. I mean, +1 influence is nice, but it's a 1 initiative with a blank ability. Discard this card every time you see it. Hunker Down, I am super excited about. Hunker Down is, like, made for Smoke. So I'm really excited to see Resolute on some stuff, especially going forward, because having a striker that's, like, a standard 4 attack striker, but then has, like, is a 6 attack counterattack with maybe something good on 2, that's pretty exciting. But for the Smoke lists, the 4-1 models have really good counterattacks. Because, or if they're tech 6, they're really good counterattacks. Mercury often makes you, by just counterattacking, he makes you take a push or a dodge to get next to him, because you take -2 speed when you come into him, assuming you weren't already on fire. And if you're at reach, he's not making a counterattack anyway. And then he has his push on 1. He has 2 damage, double push on 3. So he has his 1 inch separate, which, assuming you didn't take a push or a dodge on your first one, will push you away from him, and then will get you out guaranteed on 3. That's pretty good. And then Calculus is in a similar spot because she has her push dodge on 3. So that's really exciting. Smoke in a similar position due to she has her double push on 3 as well, and she's tack 4. So the +2 tack on a counterattack can be really good. It can really change the math, especially when you guarantee that you could probably bonus time on top of it. And then having to be on your half of a pitch is hardly a cost for Smoke. She plays the entire game on her half of the pitch. And then +1 influence, fantastic. I love this card. So overall, I am super, super excited about plots. We got them early in the media program, and I've gotten a half dozen games in with them. I've enjoyed every single one. I think it is far superior to rolling a die and to the gotchas of the guild plots. I am excited that Who Are Ya and Knee Slider are out of the game. They were way too strong. And it's nice to not be surprised by damage output via Sick'em or Wingback anymore, even though I was a big proponent of playing Sick'em. Flask Sick'ems were insane, and Nauseous Sick'ems aren't half bad. And then it also doesn't punish teams that don't have a mascot and or have a mascot that is already furious. So that's exciting. I'm just really happy with them overall. I've got a couple gripes here and there. I don't think there's a clear, best one you always take that isn't entirely governed by its number. I think you're going to take your 7s no matter what. I think it's going to be hard to leave a 7 behind no matter what you do. And I think that's okay. I mean, they have, not great effects on them. And so I think you're just going to do that. And then the way I like to think about playing them that has helped speed up my decision-making with these is that think of them for the initiative of the turn, you just rolled your dice that you were going to roll, and you already know what they are. And then you can just spend them secretly when you want to do it. The other thing that's important to note is that the turn change has altered slightly, because now instead of a roll from 1 to 6, you could play a card worth 1 to 7. So you have to go to 6 momentum to guarantee yourself the turn if you want to play a 1 card. I don't think that's going to come up that much outside of Hunker Down. I don't think you're ever going to take a 1 card, and I think there's a handful of teams that will never take Hunker Down unless they're forced to. But you should never really be forced to. From there, my other real complaint about the system is that the entire card playing and then resolving the effects on the cards is off the clock. I hope they fix this in a reveal of the OPD, but it doesn't look like, or we haven't gotten any information that says that it's going to be anything but off the clock. I'm usually pretty quick on my decisions here, and I feel like I have a really good grasp of them already, and I would like to be rewarded for that with clock pressure. Also, I think this system, at least until people get really used to it, is going to cause more games to go to time before the death clocks have expired, because now we've added each turn that we play, we've added, up to 5 minutes of off-clock time. And I think that's going to be a little bit of an issue. Also, it gives you more time, especially if you have effects, it gives you more time to decide whether you're going first or not while those effects resolve, instead of them just immediately clicking to you and have you decide whether you're going first or not. So I think that does it for game plans. If you guys are patrons and you're watching this, you should definitely come to Bourbon Trail Open. I will be there this weekend. If you're not a patron, I was there that last weekend, and I hope I saw you there. If you're looking to see me at a tournament, I will be at Adepticon. Come talk to me. I am looking for games for Run the Length. Approach me. We'll try to work out a time where I can play on camera. I would absolutely love to meet all of you guys. From there, tell me what you guys think of game plans in the comments down below. Which ones do you guys like? Did I miss the mark on any of these? And from here, I will see you in 2 weeks for another episode of Run the Length featuring the new game plans. My name's Vincent Curkov, and this has been another Snapshot.